Greetings, my name is Jeff Smith. I'm the minister for the Haymarket Church of Christ in Haymarket, Virginia. Our mailing address is in Gainesville. You can see our information or contact information at the bottom of the screen. We'd love to hear from you. If you have a question or comment about this video, we're considering James General Epistle, and this is the section 4 of that, which will be covering the 4th chapter of the book of James. The theme that we chose for our 2016 year is James chapter 3, verse 18, and a harvest of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. We've discussed James chapters 1 through 3 so far, and chapter 4 today. This is an important book because, well, it's a book of the Bible. That makes it important enough, but it was written by James, the Lord's brother, and he had a very prominent role in the early church. Jesus appeared to James, as recorded in 1 Corinthians. He was with the apostles, as is recorded in Acts 1. He was the one to be told of Peter's release in Acts chapter 12. He spoke at the Jerusalem council, or meeting, if you will, in Acts chapter 15. Paul met with James in Jerusalem in Acts 21, and he's mentioned by Paul in 1 Corinthians 9. So he's important to us for many reasons, especially his prominence in the early church. The book of James, his general epistle, can be divided neatly into 5 different sections. They all have to do with the topic of true religion. First, true religion endures trials and temptations. Secondly, it consists of doing, not just hearing. Third, it displays wisdom. Fourth, true religion befriends God through humility. And fifth, true religion is blessed through patience, prayer, and love. It's the 4th one that we want to discuss today. True religion befriends God through humility. The unusual start to the chapter in verses 1 through 6 deal with not how to be a friend, but how to be an enemy of God. James chapter 4, verses 1 through 6. What causes quarrels and what causes fights among you? Is it not this, that your passions are at war within you? You desire and do not have, so you murder. You covet and cannot obtain, so you fight and quarrel. You do not have because you do not ask. You ask and do not receive because you ask wrongly, to spend it on your passions. You adulterous people, do you not know that friendship with the world is enmity with God? Therefore, whoever wishes to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of God. Or do you suppose it is to no purpose that the Scripture says, He yearns jealously over the Spirit that He has made to dwell in us? But He gives us more grace. Therefore it says, God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. So in this section, he describes how to be an enemy of God. You adulterous people, strong words there for James' audience. But if you are thinking, if we're thinking that we can be a friend with the world and be a friend with God, we're mistaken. We can't do that. We've got to choose one or the other. In 1 John chapter 2, verses 15 through 17, it says, Do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the desires of the flesh and the desires of the eyes and the pride of life, is not from the Father, but is from the world. And the world is passing away, along with its desires. But whoever does the will of God abides forever. And so, strong language about how to become an enemy of God. Desire wrongly and fight to get what you wrongly desire. Ask God for it, but ask for the wrong thing, and the answer is no, so you do something terrible to obtain what you haven't been granted by God. Consider David's sin against Bathsheba and Uriah as an example of that. Go back and read 2 Samuel chapter 11, verses 1 through 27. David saw Bathsheba, even though she belonged to another, he desired her. His passions were aroused, and he lay with her, and brought terrible consequences upon all involved. It was just an absolutely terrible decision, a terrible act. But it illustrates James 4, verses 2 and 3. Consider Ahab's sin against Naboth in 1 Kings chapter 21, and see how he desired to have Naboth's property, which rightfully he could not sell him. He could not give it to him. It was his family's property. He needed to keep it. Ahab then reported his sorrow to Jezebel, who took sinful action to obtain that vineyard. Both of those things illustrate this principle about having wrong placed desires and passions, and that being those wrong placed desires and passions being the impetus for all sorts of terrible things in the world. And so that's part of how to be an enemy of God. This passage, James chapter 4 and verse 5, do you suppose it is to no purpose that the scripture says he yearns jealously over the Spirit that he has made to dwell in us? And then in verse 6, but he gives more grace. Therefore it says, God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. And so we're talking about pride versus humility. If you're proud and you think that you're right all the time and you've got nothing to learn from anybody, you don't even have anything to learn from God, well, you might as well just quit this video now and go somewhere else. God can't do anything with you when you think like that. But if you're humble, stick around and watch this. Try to be a disciple of God. He's got lots to teach if you have an ear to hear. Well, we don't want to be God's enemies, so we continue on, and it does tell us how to draw near to God in the next part of the book. In verse 7, beginning, submit yourselves therefore to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. Be wretched, and mourn, and weep. Let your laughter be turned to mourning, and your joy to gloom. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will exalt you. Do not speak evil against one another, brothers. The one who speaks against a brother or judges his brother speaks evil against the law and judges the law. But if you judge the law, you're not a doer of the law, but a judge. There's only one lawgiver and judge, he who is able to save and to destroy. But who are you to judge your neighbor? Come to now, you who say, today or tomorrow we'll go to such and such a town and spend a year there and trade and make a profit. Yet you do not know what tomorrow will bring. What is your life? For you are a mist that appears for a little time and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we will live and do this or that. As it is, you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil. So whoever knows the right thing to do and fails to do it, for him it is sin. So that's how it is that we become God's friend. It's through humility. We draw near to God by submitting ourselves to him and choosing that course. We're going to submit to God and resist the devil. That's a planned, plotted course in life that we've got to choose and we've got to embrace. We've got the promise then, if we do that, if we try to draw near to God sincerely, diligently, he'll draw near to us. But we've got to cleanse our hands and we've got to purify our hearts. And if we're double-minded, serving God and Satan or serving God and the world, it's just not going to bring forth its fruit. In James chapter 4, verses 9 and 10, be wretched and mourn and weep. Let your laughter be turned to mourning and your joy to gloom. There's a place for being sad. There's a place for that. In Ecclesiastes 7:2, it's better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting. For this is the end of all mankind, and the living will lay it to heart. We need to realize the shortcomings that we have and the needs that we have and realize those. And then we can humble ourselves before the Lord and he will exalt us. It goes on to talk about speaking evil and judging motives. And it says we're not to do that. We're not to think that we're judges for our brothers. There's one who does that, and that's the Lord. Next time you're tempted to speak evil of someone, just stop and do something good instead. And then this admonition at the close of the chapter, come to now, live in the present. be right here, right now. And it says, whoever knows the right thing to do and fails to do it, for him it is sin. Bottom line, if we know the right thing and we just choose not to do it, that's sin for us, and we're in a bad way. Well, just to summarize then, true religion befriends God through humility. If you want to be an enemy of God, think that you've got nothing to learn, think that you're just all that in a bag of chips, and you're absolutely perfect. God can't do a thing with you, and you're his enemy. But if you humble yourself, submit yourself to God, you'll draw near to God, and you'll be his friend. He will draw near to you. Well, a harvest of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. Our focus for 2016, James chapter 3, verse 18. I hope you've enjoyed this installment of this study of James General Epistle. My name is Jeff Smith. I invite you to come and worship with us sometime, or send us a comment or question at the contact numbers and addresses below. God bless.